All right, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts going up against this defense that we talk about being maybe not the best defense in the world, but has did have some key takeaways against the Lions. So what's going to happen here? If you missed my other video, I already talked about Jaden Daniels and how I think he'll attack this really good Eagles defense. Now we're doing the other side of the ball. In this video, I'm going to go over some numbers first, then we'll get into some film, and finally, I will give my final score predictions on who I have winning the George Halas Trophy and going to try and win the Lombardi Trophy. Let's get into it. So first things first, right here, what we're going to do is just show some PFF grades of specific positional categories just to kind of familiarize ourselves with these teams, although there is a couple things I disagree with, which we'll get into right away. So first, 24th ranked passing for the Eagles. A few of those games were Kenny Pickett games, but and even a couple Tanner McKee games, actually. 27th ranked coverage for the Commanders, though, going up against the 11th ranked receiving core. That's an advantage, as is the offensive line here. 6th in pass block and run blocking, going up against the 29th ranked run defense and 15th ranked pass rush. Now, PFF says it's just a 10th ranked running game. I don't know. I think Saquon Barkley's a little bit better than that, my personal opinion, but that is where they have all of that. Definitely a lot of advantages for the Eagles. But again, the Commanders have had disadvantages. They had it against Tampa Bay. They had it against Detroit. Can they find a way in this one as well? Well, let's start off with the trenches here, which is a huge advantage for Philadelphia, both on offense and defense. Offensively, you see the starting five, Jordan Mailata, who I said deserved some Offensive Player of the Year love, even though he missed a little bit of time when we did the podcast, just because, offensive linemen never get attention there, but he's amazing. Lane Johnson, the other tackle, is amazing. On the inside, Landon Dickerson. Mekhi Becton's been a nice addition at guard, and then Cam Jurgens at center. They have not missed much of a beat after losing Jason Kelsey. This Eagles team knows how to get offensive linemen. Really good starting five. Also, I forgot to mention this, but the number you see next to them, that's where PFF ranks them. Again, I'm using PFF grades. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea. It's just a stat to use. Feel free to disagree with them if you want to. I just like to throw it on there to have a stat. What else would I use with offensive line, right? As for defensive linemen, a lot of players that the Commanders use, in fact, every player you see on this list got significant playing time in the divisional round against the Lions. They rotate a lot of players. You see a lot of, again, the PFF grades here, not great, I would say. Currently, I believe the best is Dorrance Armstrong at 50th. Although I would say like Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and even Johnny Newton have been good. I think Allen and Payne, maybe PFF hasn't been crazy about them this year, but previous years they've been a big fan. I know Allen just got back from injury too, so don't necessarily think that they can't get wins, but you have to assume that with this Eagles offensive line, it's just an advantage for Philadelphia. Who knows? Football gets weird. In the snow, maybe things can get different, but you have to assume the Eagles offensive line should have an advantage here. The flip side is, you look at the bottom two players, Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. Those are off-ball linebackers. Doesn't get a lot better than those two. Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner are both great players. So that's maybe your saving grace, especially in the running game, is those guys can really play. As for the receiving game, so you see what this chart is, if this is your first video of these kind that you are watching, what the numbers you're looking at is PFF grades and yards per route ran against man and then against zone. So you see A.J. Brown at the top of the list has a amazing 4.27 yards per route ran against man coverage. That's otherworldly. He has dominated against man coverage so far this season, although not so much this postseason. This has been a weird situation with A.J. Brown, who is such a dominant force, not really doing a ton in the playoffs. I did have like a key conversion on a 4th down and 4. That was against zone, but still, he's really good against zone as well. The Commanders, they will mix things up. They will try some one-on-ones, and even when they play zone, a lot of times it's a cover 3 zone where you still have an opportunity down the field. Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, two really good options as well for the Eagles. What I'm kind of more interested in, though, is this whole Marshawn Lattimore thing. If you look at the Commanders' secondary and you look at their splits between man and zone, the two stats we're using for them are PFF grades and passer rating for each of those. If you see on the left two columns and look at the passer rating and even the PFF grades, some ugly numbers here. I mean, the best passer rating against for the Commanders is Quan Martin at 91.7. The best PFF grade is Percy Butler with a 66.8. Those are two safeties. The three corners at the top. Mike Sandstro have been a really good zone corner this year. PFF has not been crazy about him when he is left one-on-one, although he's been still one of the bright spots compared to some of these other pieces, including at the top of the list, Marshawn Lattimore, who's been fine in zone coverage, but you look at him in man, a passer rating against of 134.7. When he's had to go up one-on-one against guys, he's lost those matchups. And even in this playoffs, he has struggled. And it's worth mentioning, this is including his Saints games as well. This is not just the when he was with the Commanders. In the playoffs, obviously he struggled against Mike Evans. He even struggled in that Detroit game, despite the fact that they won. So there's mismatches, and you might be wondering, well, do you even, what do you do with this situation? How do you try and cover A.J. Brown if you want to go one-on-one? Well, we'll get into that a little bit when we get into that. I want to talk some film now, but real quick before we do, let's just talk about the numbers. How did things go the last two times these two teams played? The first time, remember, it was a Thursday night game, so those are always weird. You don't get the full time to prepare. You see Jalen Hurts' numbers were solid. Nothing amazing, nothing horrible. A.J. Brown had 65 yards. Dallas Goedert had 61. Saquon Barkley had 52 as well through the air. And then a couple other guys had some catches. The next time these two teams played, Jalen Hurts only had 11 passing yards because he got banged up very early on in that game. And it's worth mentioning, he is currently, as of recording this video, it has not officially been stated that he will play in the conference championship game. I'm assuming he will. I'd be shocked if he doesn't, but I should mention that as well. Kenny Pickett played most of this game. Not the best numbers from Kenny Pickett, just barely above 5 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Was the best numbers from A.J. Brown, 97 yards and a touchdown. Devonta Smith had 51 passing yards as well. As for the rushing, the first game, you saw Saquon Barkley go off 146 yards on 5.6 yards per carry and a pair of touchdowns. Gainwell on his 4 carries was effective, and even Jalen Hurts, he carried the ball a lot. The yards per carry isn't crazy, but he did have a touchdown as well and 10 carries. I think a few of those were kneel downs, but still, they ran the ball effectively the first time. And the second time, they were even better. Jalen Hurts had 3 carries for 41 in that one. The last carry was the one that injured himself on. Saquon Barkley had 150 yards and a pair of touchdowns. You had even Kenny Pickett had 3 yards for 4.3 yards per carry. This time, Kenneth Gainwell not quite as good. But still, the running game as a whole, both times these two teams played each other, was effective. Like this one, it's going to be a 2nd down and 10. And really watch the Eagles' offensive line here. Watch it, they're going to block very well. You see Saquon Barkley is able to have a huge hole to run through. And look at him, that burst that he has. Wasn't able to break that one. Did have a long touchdown in that second game. It's kind of the thing, right? Is they kind of just keep chipping away. And then all of a sudden, he'll have these one-on-one matchups against safeties, can make them miss, and get into the end zone for a touchdown. He is a force, and it's hard to imagine him not being a factor in the conference championship game. However, there are ways to stop him, right? Watch Frankie Louvu on this play. I do think the Commanders might try this, where we saw this against Tampa Bay. They had some nice run stops, and even against the Lions, they would have the occasional really nice run stop because they're essentially just selling out and saying, you know what, let's see if we can make a play. Watch as Frankie Louvu, the off-ball linebacker, rushes in. He ties up Saquon Barkley and ultimately brings him down. There are ways to tackle Saquon Barkley. I'm not expecting it to happen all the time, but could it happen on some key moments is maybe what you look at. It's absolutely possible. But now let's go over here. I want to talk about Marshawn Lattimore because, again, he was their big addition. They traded him hoping that he could be a star player for them, and to be honest, it just hasn't been that. You see, especially, it's interesting, so I talked about who's going to cover A.J. Brown. In that second game they played, they put Lattimore on Brown a lot. They said, hey, we got our number 1 corner. Let's trust him right here, and it didn't work out. Watch as on this one, you're going to see A.J. Brown's able to win that matchup pretty easily. You're then going to see over here, it's a 3rd down and 3, inside the 5. You see he, again, kind of easily wins that matchup. And then, you saw a couple others. Some deep shots here. You're going to see A.J. Brown be able to make that grab. This one, you're going to see A.J. Brown not make the catch, but a flag came out. That actually happened a couple times. So while the numbers looked bad, they could have been worse because there was a couple of deep pass interferences. That was another, I don't know, 60, 70 yards of pass interferences. So really, it was almost like an 150-yard performance from A.J. Brown if you included penalties. So yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Now, at the end of the game, we actually saw some reps with Benjamin St-Juste on A.J. Brown, not because they made an adjustment, but because Marshawn Lattimore got injured. And listen, I don't know if Benjamin St-Juste is the guy you want on A.J. Brown either. Although at first, St-Juste is going to do an okay job at hanging with A.J. Brown. You see, Brown makes the grab, but again, it's 4th down and 7. So all you have to do is run up, make this tackle, and you're good. But again, it's A.J. Brown. Watch him make a move. He's able to get open. And this is just the thing about the Eagles and why the Eagles at their best are such a good offense, not just such a good defense, is you have Saquon Barkley who can consistently break off these runs, so you want to only have one safety deep. But if you only have one safety deep, that means that you're going to get one-on-one matchups with A.J. Brown consistently. And if you get those one-on-one matchups, maybe you can try Sandstro, who's usually more of a corner, or a slot corner. I don't know. That's an option, I suppose. But I don't love that option either. To be honest, they can't really, I mean, A.J. Brown he might have to show up in this game. I know he didn't have to show up either the past 2 games, and I thought he would have, but like this one feels like if they lose this game, like it'll be because A.J. Brown doesn't show up. If the Eagles lose this game, it's because A.J. Brown doesn't show up. Maybe you could even get crazy if you're the Commanders on specific plays and say, you know what, we're going to, essentially play no safeties, double A.J. Brown, and still try and stop the run. I don't know if I love that strategy because then Devonta Smith could get open down the field. So it's basically someone's going to have to step up for the Commanders, I think, on the outside. One more play I want to talk about, which is zone coverage. So this is a quarters coverage play. This is what I think the Commanders should probably try and do. Now, when you do this, usually you can still give up one-on-one matchups on the outside. A couple of those plays with A.J. Brown down the field were single safety deep zone coverage plays. And again, you're playing 2 safeties deep. Saquon can run all over you. That's just a factor. But what's going to happen here is A.J. Brown's trying to get into a gap in coverage. As you see, Kenny Pickett's just going to try and fire it through. Frankie Louvu makes the interception. That's been a key part of what the Commanders have done, is they don't turn the ball over, and they've gotten turnovers. They won a turnover battle 5-0 against the Detroit Lions, and they won it 1-0 against Tampa Bay. That only won, and it was kind of an unforced error, really. Tampa Bay just screwed up a play, but still, turnovers has been a factor. If they can get turnovers, that might be a key to slowing down this Eagles offense. Jalen Hurts has a 3.4 turnover-worthy play percentage this year, which is 27th best out of 44. So again, first best is what you want. So essentially, he's on the lower end of this. He will put the ball in harm's way at times this season. I know the interception I showed was Kenny Pickett. I'm just saying, that's a factor. You play zone coverage, missed throws become a bigger deal. It's the cold, so missed throws are more likely to happen. Tip passes are more likely to happen. Now it's a little bit harder for you to catch the passes as well, but there is just some opportunities there, and that might be what they have to do again. To be honest, I think that's probably their easiest key to success, is if they can win the turnover battle, which again, they've done a great job of protecting the football. So maybe just getting one turnover is all they need to win the turnover battle. That's what happened against Tampa Bay. So final predictions time. The Eagles' offensive points per drive on the year is 2.72. The Washington defensive points per drive on the year is 2.28. The first time the Eagles had a 2.6 points per drive game. Second time, a 2.5 points per drive game. My guess is this will be just slightly better than both of those two. Again, no Kenny Pickett this time. And also you have, the Thursday game kind of slowed down both offenses there. I think they'll be a little better. Even the 2.7, you could talk me into a higher number, but I still feel like there are some ways for the Commanders to take advantage. And again, the A.J. Brown thing is just a question, in my opinion. What are we going to see? Because he has been a little bit wonky so far. But honestly, even Devonta Smith should be able to step into that number 2 and be able to make some plays as well. I like Sandstro, but he's really kind of the only corner that the Commanders have. So my final prediction, I have a close game, but I am leaning Philadelphia here to win at 27-25. I think that the Jaden Daniels thing has to scare you if you're an Eagles fan, but there are just so many other areas where the Eagles have advantages. They have advantages on their defensive line, on their offensive line, so they should win the trenches in both sides. I think they have an advantage on the outside offensively, and even defensively, I think it's a battle between their corners and the Commanders' receivers who have played well this year. I really think it just comes down to Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts. Hurts has to, I think, in my opinion, play better than he has these past couple playoff games. I know he's capable of it. I think he's had a good year. Maybe not the best stretch. Although, again, I think I trust him in a big spot, and I trust Daniels in a big spot, so I think it'll be a fun game. But yeah, I am leaning Philadelphia as of right now. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.